The prayer for guidance. The last 3 verses of the surah consists of a prayer on the part of a man. In other words, Allah Jalla Sha'nuhu Himself in His great mercy has taught men what to pray for. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Guide us in the straight path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, not of those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray. The implications of guidance. A problem of highest significance arises here. The teaching with regard to the prayer for being guided in the straight path is addressed equally to all men or all Muslims and to saints and prophets who have already received guidance and are even a source of guidance for other men. Why should these repeatedly pray for something they already possess? The answer to this question depends on knowing all that is implied by guidance. The answer would at the same time remove all difficulties and confusions which arise in the minds of those who, not being familiar with the true signification of guidance, begin to suspect that certain verses of the Holy Quran were contradicting certain others. The meaning of hidayah or guidance. The best explanation of the word hidayah, guidance, has been offered by Imam Raghib al-Isfahani in his Mufradat al-Quran, which can sum up thus: hidayah signifies leading someone towards his destination, gently and kindly, while guidance in the real sense issues forth from Allah alone, and it has several degrees. The first degree of guidance. The first degree of guidance is general and covers everything that exists in the universe: minerals, plants, animals, etc. It would surprise many to hear of guidance in relation to minerals, but the Holy Quran makes it quite clear that all forms of existence in the universe and every particle of dust possesses life, sensitivity, and even consciousness and understanding in its own degree and according to its own sphere of existence. Some of these existence possesses more of this essence than others, and some less. Hence, those who have very little of it are considered to be inanimate and devoid of consciousness. The Sharia too has recognized this difference, and such creatures have not been made to bear the obligation of observing the injunctions of Allah. The creatures which show obvious signs of life but not those of consciousness and reason are considered to be living but not rational, whereas creatures showing the signs of consciousness and reason along with those of life are called rational beings. Because of these differences in the degrees of consciousness, men and jinn alone of all the existence in the universe have been made subservient to the injunctions of the Sharia and accountable for their actions. For they alone have the necessary consciousness and understanding. But it does not mean that other creatures or existence are totally devoid of life or sensitivity or of consciousness and understanding. The Holy Quran is very explicit on this point. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِن لَّا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. Nothing exists that does not celebrate His praise, but you do not understand their mode of praising. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالطَّيْرُ صَافَّاتٍ.
「
Have قد علم صلاته وتسبيحه والله عليم بما يفعلون. Have you not seen that everything in the heavens and the earth proclaims Allah's purity, and the birds too that spread their wings, each of them knows its prayer and its mode of praising, and Allah is aware of what they do. Evidently, one cannot extol and praise Allah without knowing Allah. It is equally evident that knowing Allah is the highest form of knowledge possible, and such a knowledge cannot be gained unless one possesses consciousness and understanding. These verses therefore show that everything that exists in the universe possesses life, sensitivity, understanding and consciousness. Though it may not always be apparent to the ordinary observer, a truth which has been endorsed by all the great religions, by certain ancient philosophers and lately even by experimental science. This then is the first degree of guidance which is common to minerals, plants, animals, men, jinns and all the forms of creation. The Holy Quran speaks of this primary and general guidance in these words: قال ربنا الذي أعطى كل شيء خلقه ثم هدى. He gave to everything its distinctive form and then guided it. Or as we find in another surah, سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. Celebrate the name of your Lord, the Most High, who has created all things, well proportioned them, and who has determined and guided them. This is to say, Allah has given every creature a particular nature and function, and guided in a way which should correspond to its station in the scheme of things. Thanks to this general guidance, everything in the universe is performing its allotted function with such marvelous efficiency. For example, it is the ears that hear a sound and not the eyes or the nose. Similarly, the nose smells but cannot see. The eyes see but cannot smell. In short, إن كل من في السماوات والأرض إلا آتي الرحمن عبدا. There is nothing in the heavens and the earth but comes to the All-Merciful as a servant. The second degree of guidance. Unlike the first, the second degree of guidance is not general but particular. It is limited to those creatures which are considered to be rational, that is, men and jinns. This kind of guidance comes to every man through prophets and revealed books. Some accept this guidance and become believers, Muslims. Some reject it and become disbelievers, Kafirs. The third degree of guidance. The third degree of guidance is still more particular, being special to true believers, mu'mineen, and the God-fearing, muttaqeen. Like the first degree, the third kind of guidance too descends directly to the individual from Allah, and it is called tawfiq. That is to say, Allah's grace provides a man with internal and external means and circumstances which should make it easy and even pleasant for him to accept and act upon the guidance of the Holy Quran, and difficult to ignore or oppose it. The scope of the third degree of guidance is limitless and its levels indefinite. The explanation written over here is, contrary to all the modern fictions about man's evolution or perfectibility or progress which may pass for sound philosophy or science, Here is the sphere in which man not only can but is required to make a progress in the verifiable sense of the term. The agency of this progress is the performance of virtuous deeds. The explanation here is, as defined, it goes without saying by the Sharia and not by individual or collective fancy or by custom and habits or by the fads or fashions of the day. All increase in virtuous deeds brings with it an increase in divine guidance. The Holy Quran itself gives us the promise of such increase. وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدًى. As for those who follow the straight path, Allah will increase their guidance. وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ يَهْدِ قَلْبَهُ. And whoever believes in Allah, He guides his heart. الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those who strive for, literally in us, we will surely guide them in our paths. We will surely guide them in our paths. It is in the field of progress that we see even the greatest prophets and men of Allah is striving. And it is an increase in divine guidance and help that they keep seeking to their last breath. A cumulative view of guidance. Keeping in mind the three distinct degrees of guidance, one can easily see that guidance is a thing which everyone does possess in some way, and yet no one, not even the greatest, can do without wishing to attain more of its advanced and higher stages. Hence, of all the prayers man can address to Allah, the most important is the prayer for guidance, which has been taught to us in the very first surah of the Holy Quran. And this prayer is as necessary for the greatest of prophets and men of Allah as for an ordinary Muslim. That is why the Surah Al-Fath, victory, is enumerating the material and spiritual benefits of the conquest of Makkah in the last days of the Holy Prophet ﷺ also says, وَيَهْدِيكُمْ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا, and to guide you on the straight path. When these verses were revealed, the Holy Prophet ﷺ had already received guidance and was a source of guidance for others. The good tidings of receiving guidance can, in this situation, have only one meaning, that he attained some very high station of guidance at the time. Guidance, some notes of caution. In concluding this discussion about the different implications of the guidance, Hidayah, we repeat points that would help the reader of the Holy Quran avoid certain confusions and errors. First, the Holy Quran sometimes speaks of divine guidance as being general and common to believers and non-believers, in fact, to all creatures, and sometimes makes it out to be particular and special to the God-fearing. So, the unwary may be led to a sense of contradiction here. But once it is understood that one degree of guidance is common to all, whereas another degree is limited to particular cases, the doubt and confusion readily resolves itself. Second, on the one hand, the Holy Quran reminds us again and again that Allah Jalla Sha'nuhu does not grant guidance to the unjust and the unrighteous. On the other hand, it repeatedly declares that Allah guides all. The misunderstanding which may arise here is also dispelled by a knowledge of the degrees of guidance. Now we can easily see that the general guidance is given to all without any distinction, but the third and very special degree of guidance is not granted to the unjust and the unrighteous. Third, the first and the third degree of guidance pertain to a direct act of divine grace, and no prophet can have anything to do with it, for the function of the prophets is related only to the second degree. Whenever the Holy Quran speaks of prophets as guides, it is always referring to this second degree and to it alone. On the other hand, when the Holy Quran addressing the noble Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, you cannot guide whom you please, it is the third degree of guidance which is intended, This is to say, it is neither the function of a prophet, nor is it in his power to provide tawfiq to anyone, in other words, to make it easy for anyone to accept guidance. Here is the translator's note. In this context, one should not overlook the popularity enjoyed in the West since the rise of Protestantism, but the notion of a personal relationship with God on the part of the individual. This notion has in its turn produced a diffused yet very effective conviction that ethics can be made independent of religion, that the external or legislative aspect of religion is of no account, that prescribed rites are irrelevant to the so-called religious experience, and more monstrously still that doctrines can be dispensed with altogether, all of which betrays a total incomprehension of what constitutes a religion. The tendency has in fact begun to infect some of the modernist interpreters of Islam in one way or another, all of whom claim to be fulfilling the needs of the present age. Attempts have been made even to exploit this notion for ulterior motives. In persuading the Muslim countries to look upon themselves as the easternmost part of the West, the London Economist argues that Islam also implies a one-to-one relationship between the believer and the God he believes in, a direct contact without intermediary, and in the relationship in which a single God speaks directly to the core of a single man, is the basis of individualism. The Protestant ethic is grounded on precisely the same concept. May 17 to 23, 1975, page 82 of the Spatial Survey. In the light of the discussion regarding the third degrees of guidance, it should not be difficult to see that the direct contact with God without intermediary pertains only to the first and third degrees, and not the second degree where the mediation of the prophets is indispensable. To attain the third degree may be necessary for making a spiritual progress, but Islam, or for that matter any authentic religion, is born out of the second degree of guidance. One cannot indeed enjoy the benefits of the third degree without having accepted the guidance of the second degree, or to use the Islamic terminology, without following the Sharia. To sum up the Quranic prayer, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, guide us in the straight path, is most comprehensive, and certainly one of the most important prayers taught to men. No member of the human family can claim not to need it. No success, no prosperity in this or in the other world can really come without being on the straight path. Particularly so for man lost in the anxieties of mortal life, the prayer for the straight path is an elixir, though people do not realize it. Which path is straight? Now to come to the meanings of the straight path, it is the path which has no turns and twists. The term signifies a particular way of faith which equally avoids the two extremes of excess and deficiency. One who follows the straight path would, in matters of doctrine and practice both, neither go beyond the limits nor fall short of them. The last two verses of the Surah Al-Fatiha define and identify the straight path, something man has been prompted to pray for immediately earlier. The verse says, صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace. As to who these people are, another verse of the Holy Quran gives us detail in the following words. As to who these people are, another verse of the Holy Quran gives us details in the following words. الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. Those whom Allah has blessed, namely the prophets, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, and the righteous. These are the four categories of those who find favor with Allah. Among them all, the prophets are the greatest. The Siddiqeen, the constantly true, are those who acquire spiritual perfection and thus attain the highest rank among the followers of a prophet. In common parlance, they are called men of Allah or saints. The explanation written over here is, if taken in an untainted religious sense, and certainly not if taken in one of the many modern vulgarized usages of the term, where, for instance, you see the halo of spiritual glory over the head of a spy. The Shuhada martyrs are those who sacrifice even their lives for the sake of their faith, or who bear witness to the truth, as the word admits of both meanings. The righteous, the Salihin, are those who follow the Sharia completely, not only in the matter of obligations, wajibat, but also with regard to commendable, mustahab actions. In everyday language, they are called the pious or the virtuous or the good. This word then determines the straight path in a positive manner, identifying it with the path followed by a man of these four categories. The next verse, by a process of elimination, does the same in a negative manner by saying, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Not of those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray. Those who have incurred Allah's wrath are the people who, in spite of being quite familiar with the commandments of Allah, willfully go against them out of a calculated perversity or in the service of their desires, or in other words, who are deficient in obeying divine injunctions. This, for example, was the general condition of the Jews who were ready to sacrifice their religion for the sake of a petty worldly gain. For the sake of the petty worldly gain. And used to insult and sometimes even to kill their prophets. As for al-dallin, those who go astray, they are the people who, out of ignorance or lack of thought, go beyond the limits appointed by Allah and indulge in excess and exaggeration in religious matters. This, for example, has generally been the error of the Christians, who exceeded the limits in their reverence for a prophet and turned him into a god. On the one hand, there is the rebelliousness of the Jews, who not only refused to listen to the prophets of Allah, but went on to kill them. On the other hand, there is the excessive zeal of the Christians who defied a prophet. Thus, the essential meaning of the verse is that in praying for the straight path, we do not ask for the path of those who are the slaves of their desires, preserved in thought and action, and deficient in performing their religious obligations, not the path of those who are ignorant or unmindful or misled, and indulge in excess and exaggeration in religious matters, but wish for a path between these two extremes, which inclines neither towards excess nor towards deficiency, and which is as free of the promptings of desires as of doubts and confusions and of erroneous beliefs. In short, the prayer for the straight path is the essence of the Surah Al-Fatiha, since knowing and following the straight path is the real knowledge and the real achievement in this mortal world. A mistake in picking it up right takes people and nations to ruins. Otherwise, there are even non-Muslims who claim to be seeking God and undertake stupendous labors to attain this end. The Holy Quran has therefore defined the straight path so explicitly from a positive as well as eliminative point of view. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.